I'm asking Congress to fund a state-of-the-art Golden Dome missile defense shield to protect our homeland, all made in the USA.
Amen at last. Let's go back 4 years when Trump was president 4.5 years ago. He mandated a review by DOD, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, etc., on the potential impact of an EMP. Unfortunately, the next administration, Biden, killed that entire study. For 4 years, we've done nothing on it. Golden Dome is now coming back onto the table as a ballistic defense against an EMP strike from North Korea or Iran. Let's look at the Israeli system. It's called Iron Dome. That's a tactical defense system designed to shoot missiles down in the last seconds before impact from short range, like Iran. Golden Dome is a strategic defense that would prevent any enemy attack from coming across the Pacific Ocean to hit our facilities with an EMP hit, which would wipe out our electrical infrastructure. Iron Dome, okay, you launch from Iran. The missiles are a rather low trajectory. Iron Dome hits those missiles in the last seconds before impact from a short range, maybe 2, 3, 5 miles up. Golden Dome is designed as a ballistic defense system for intercontinental. The big fear I've always held is that North Korea has the capacity to launch an ICBM with a nuclear warhead on top. When it's detonated above the continental United States, it sets up something called the Compton effect, which blows out the electrical grid of the United States, or in the case of Europe, a weapon detonated over Central Europe could basically wipe out the electrical grid of all of Western Europe. This is a system designed to defend against that. Let us say that there's a weapon being launched from North Korea with a 60 kiloton warhead atop it. Let's say the weapon is destroyed. Most of it would actually just be disintegrated in space. Okay, let's say some of the radioactive material, which is only about 10 or 20 pounds, makes it to the Earth's surface. You're going to have a hot spot there, but it's a hot spot a couple hundred yards across rather than a whole nation going dark. The weapon is not going to detonate if the detonators and everything else are destroyed at the intercept. Oh yeah, it's definitely, you take them out while they're in space, not in those final seconds of reentry. Again, difference, Iron Dome, Iran is not shooting nuclear weapons, it's just shooting the standard ballistic missile. It blows up, yeah, debris comes down to the Earth's surface, but at least it's not an explosion. Golden Dome, destroy the weapon before it can possibly detonate. A large solar flare can basically do the same thing of overloading the electrical grid and shorting it out. It's known as the Carrington event, which happened in 1859 when a British astronomer observed flares on the sun, and 2 days later, the primitive electrical grid of that time, taking care of telegraphy systems and such, just shorted off. 21st century terror is an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, or even a large solar storm could do the same thing. Overloads the electrical grid, shorts it out. According to one DOE, Department of Energy study, it could take up to 5 years to restore 80% of the grid back to capacity. However, the majority of us would be dead because there's no water, food supply, transportation, medication, etc. All of those delicate infrastructures go down and it takes months or years to repair them. The real vulnerable point of our system is the high tension lines, the high tension power lines. England, you crisscross by thousands of miles of these, large electrical systems pumping a couple of 100,000 volts. The wires, this is an amazing thing to watch. I've seen film on this. An EMP test would actually short the wires off and drop them off the pylons. They would melt. So even if a generator survived, it no longer has the wiring to get from the power plant to us. The key thing here is it's not the actual generator in your power plant that's at possible risk. The really bad problem is the distribution system. All the high tension lines, which are most vulnerable, they start shorting off, then to your substations, etc. So it's the grid itself that's vulnerable, not necessarily the point of generation. When the Soviets did a test called Soviet Test 184, they launched a weapon in 1962, detonated it above the Earth's atmosphere. Power stations 500 miles away were shorting offline. So we are very, very vulnerable to this type of thing, both in the EU, Britain, and in the United States. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. It was called mutual assured destruction. The big fear back then was the Soviets would launch hundreds of missiles at us. We would launch at them. Everybody blows up. Nobody wins the game. Well, it's a different paradigm now. Third world players, in particular North Korea and Iran, if it ever achieves nuclear capability, they just have to launch three small warheads, about 4 times the size of a Hiroshima bomb, get it up there 200 miles out. When the weapon blows, it sets up an electrostatic discharge called the Compton effect. That shorts our grid off. The grid is not going, it doesn't self-repair. It does not come back online. And basically, to put it in common terminology, we're screwed. In fact, any nation that has a ICBM capability and a nuclear warhead, even a small one, 40 to 60 kiloton compared to the big city busters, has the capacity to do this. So gone are the days of blowing entire cities out. Well, look at it this way. If we detonated a 60 kiloton weapon on London right now, how far out would the destruction be? We blow one, say, over Buckingham Palace, down by Westminster, things would still kind of survive. An EMP just shorts the grid off and you lose your electricity. The devastation ultimately would be 100 times worse because the grid is gone. You can't pump water, get food, all the other things we depend upon. I call it expectation of normalcy. Your water system this morning, when you got up, it worked. It works tomorrow. But suppose it no longer worked across all of London. That's when the terror starts. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan proposed what was called the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars. The idea was to shoot Soviet missiles down before they hit us. The truth of it is, the technology was not yet there to intercept that number of missiles. That was 40 years ago. Hypersonic weapons today could be doing intercept within a matter of a couple of minutes. So if you launched a weapon from North Korea, it's going to arc up about 80 to 100 miles above the Earth's atmosphere. It coasts across the Pacific and then finally drops to blow above the United States. Golden Dome will knock that missile out in the first minutes before it ever becomes a danger to us. Some people have theorized that putting such a battery into Poland could very well defend all of Europe as well. This is an essential defense for the 21st century. American defense system will be based in Guam, Alaska, and the west coast of the United States. And you don't need hundreds of missile batteries. Just half a dozen could take care of it. Though you'd also want protection on the south coast and even the east coast. The cost, it might run a couple $100 billion. But then again, the way our economies run today, a couple $100 billion is thrown around like chump change when we compare that to trillions of dollars spent on everything else. It's, if you owned a home and you decided, I don't need the insurance, I think the mortgage company would be right down your throat. I view this as an insurance policy to protect Europe and the United States. We need a far more robust foreign policy, both on the part of NATO and of America, of conveying very clearly to the third world players in particular, North Korea is my biggest threat, followed by Iran. We can never allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. Just yesterday, Iran put out a propaganda poster that was calling for the total annihilation of Israel. Don't you think if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they might contemplate using that over Tel Aviv? That's a scary scenario. So we have to more robust foreign policy, very clear warning to the bad guys. Secondly, manufacturing replacement components, and then also upgrading the grid. It costs money, but yet again, it's an insurance policy for the future. Most of our electrical grid in the United States, at least, I don't know about Europe, is not manufactured here. It's manufactured in China. Large transformers take 2 to 3 years from the time of order to delivery. The majority of our electrical grid is 30, 40, even 50 years old. If we upgraded the grid to a 21st century grid, I would call it a smart grid, that could ameliorate some of the problems that occur with an EMP, maybe even prevent some of this from happening. So we have to increase missile defense, but we also need to have a more robust electrical system, both here in the United States and in Europe, to handle if something like this did happen. It could maybe make the damage significantly less than it would be at this moment.